I guess
So it is 7:33 p.m. and we are going to call this regular but virtual meeting of the Rutherford Board of Education to order. And we're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, but we're going to ask.
Sergio, you're cutting out again.
Can you hear me okay?
You have to lean all the way in, apparently, when you're in.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So we're going to ask everyone to stay seated, but to look at Mr. Hurley's box we can do our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
The
To the
flag
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 of
of
the
the
United States of America,
and to
to
the
the
republic
republic which stands
one
one
nation,
nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
liberty
liberty and
liberty and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all.
Okay, you can ask Mr. Kelly to take roll call.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Here.
Mrs. Jones,
Present.
Mrs. Librera,
Here.
Mr. Mazzone,
Here.
Dr. Racine,
Here.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Here.
Dr. Owadi.
Here.
You have a quorum. Thank you.
Okay, the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Rutherford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted on the bulletin board outside the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald, South Bergenite, and the Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. The agenda is posted electronically on the Friday before the meeting date on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. Due to the Governor's Executive Order 104, citing the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's recommendation for cancellation or postponement of gatherings of 50 or more people for the coming weeks, this regular meeting of the Rutherford Board of Education will be conducted utilizing video conferencing in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6, as amended by PI 2020 C11. Members of the public may participate by logging on to the website at 7:30 p.m. and that link was provided in the meeting agenda that is on the Rutherford District website. A video recording of the video conference meeting will be made available on the district's website, www.rutherfordschools.org, subsequent to the meeting. The video link can be found by opening the Board of Education link and clicking on Public Meetings and then Videos. We are going to be approving the March 16 minutes at the next board meeting later in April. So we're going to bypass that. And a quick comment to the public, if at any time my capacity to be heard becomes less than confident, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Mr. Mazzone, the Vice President, to take over from there. With that said, we'll move to the report of the superintendent.
Thank you, Dr. Alati. A very brief report, but I think an important one is on update on our distance learning. I am extremely pleased and extremely proud of how in 2 days we were able to get up and running into a venture that we've never had to deal with before. Between the technology staff, the administration, the supervisors, the teachers, it was a tremendous effort to get this going. And I can tell you that the work that these folks have been doing over the last 3 weeks now is beyond, I think, the scope of any of us could have imagined to keep everything up and running. I'm equally proud of the parents and the students who have been participating with very high level of attendance, enthusiasm, and completed work. We recognize that this is a trying time for all of our families, both the families that are working for us and the families that are receiving the education. And we're trying to approach it with flexibility, empathy, at the same time, appropriate amount of rigor to try to allow our students to move ahead the way they should be. So we've been getting a lot of good and positive support from the community. I'm also pleased that we've been getting some good messaging out through Twitter and Facebook and our website. A couple of pieces that I've run on NJ Network and News 12. This is Rutherford is running an article on their website there today. I think it's out, taking all the pictures and updates from our releases and compiling them into an article for people to see. So, we're looking for every bit of good that we can in this rather turmoil that we're in right now. And we're seeing a lot of it. Also, the custodial staff, the maintenance staff, the secretarial staff, the entire district has been working, cleaning the buildings, keeping everything up the way it has to be if and when we return this year, and also to move ahead with projects that need to get done. So we're in a good place with our staff and the community. There's no official word yet on when and if we're going to be returning. The governor today did not address schools, but he did address that the federal level, the president's announcement of the social distancing rules extending to April 30th overrides his original comment of looking at schools in a 2-week increment. So tomorrow I will be putting something out to the parents and the community and to the faculty and staff that we're going to be planning for at least 2 more weeks. I'm hoping that we get some clear or feeling by the time we hit May, because 2 more weeks takes us to like April 30th after the break, that we would be able to say that we will or we won't be coming back, or what the odds are for that. We are meeting, and we have been meeting every couple of days with faculty and staff, administrators, supervisors, in this method through Zoom, to review both the current situation and all the what ifs in terms of us coming back. So in terms of what happens if we don't return to school, graduations, end of the year activities, the closing of school in terms of collecting stuff, equipment, supplies from kids and teachers, people getting their personal supplies out of the building. We are planning and beginning to have discussions, serious discussions, or actually began last week, about different ways to approach that. I think it's very premature to come up with a final plan and to reach out to whoever we need to reach out to for additional input or to share, but it won't be premature when we get to the end of the month. So we're going to be ready at that point to continue and finalize those plans if need be. And that's it. That's what I have right now. I am very grateful for the way the district has come together, and we've had the best 3 weeks we could have under these circumstances.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Hurley? Okay, then we're going to move on to the report of the president. And in that spirit, I want to thank, first and foremost, Mr. Hurley, Mr. Kelly, and the IT staff for putting this together. I think it's really important that as a board that we role model the guidelines put out by the CDC and the local health department around social distancing and best practices right now. And so for you to be able to put this together as the first ever virtual Board of Education meeting, I think really says a lot about the capacity of the district and really the commitment of this board, because not only do we have a quorum, but we have all 9 board members on this. So I want to thank all the board members as well. I also want to just extend a thank you to the principals of all the schools, the faculty and staff, and how within a month they have turned what was real-time classrooms in person to remote learning with plans where our students are learning, they're meeting expectations, and you know, it's pretty easy to realize when you start to think about it that you know, whether you have someone who's worked for 10 years or 20 years, they're really in their first year of what they're doing when it comes to this landscape right now. And so, you know, it would seem to me from conversations with Mr. Hurley that the faculty and staff are working longer hours, you know, more than ever, harder than ever, especially given all their various circumstances. They may have young children in their home and, you know, people who are sick that they're caring for. So a huge thank you from our hearts and minds. At the same time, I think it's important to signal to the public that it is business as usual in terms of making sure that the district is running and it's operating as it should. So with that, just a couple of announcements. You know, the public's going to hear a little bit about the movement of our facilities project forward, but a couple of other things. April 27th is going to be our public hearing of the budget at the next board meeting. So that's something just for the public to know. And this is the time of year where we usually launch the superintendent's evaluation. So just to provide a quick update, I sent the board the intended evaluation tool to use for this year. It was the one previous to the 2019-21, so a little less cumbersome, but it's very thorough. And the way it would work is Mr. Hurley will receive it first. He'll do his own self-evaluation, and then we will all receive it, and then we will see Mr. Hurley's comments, and we will also do an evaluation as well. And I want to thank Dr. Racine, who has agreed to help convert it into a Google form, which means that once Mr. Hurley has completed it, then Dr. Racine will basically be able to create a survey out of it. So board members, you will receive it as a survey. The intention when I work backward is that there's 2 board meetings in June. So at the end of June board meeting, that's when we go over in executive session, the evaluation with Mr. Hurley. The beginning of June is when I'd like to go over it just with the board in executive session, which means I'd like to have it done by the middle of May. And so by next Friday, Dr. Racine's going to complete converting it into a survey. We're going to send it to Mr. Hurley so that everyone should have between 2.5 and 3 weeks to complete the survey. So we're looking at the end of April. The board members, you'll receive the survey. I'll give you a deadline of middle of May, and then we'll proceed that way. So that's the intention, and that concludes my report. So I'm going to stop there and see if board members have any questions for me.
It's a week from this Friday or this Friday? A week from this Friday that Dr. Racine will have finished it.
Correct.
Okay.
I know we have a little more time than usual on our hands, but I have to cut him a little bit of slack.
Okay. I got it. Thank you.
Dr. Lottie, if I may, while you were speaking about meetings and business as usual, committee meetings right now, I'm going to try to have them when we need them, and we'll either do them through this type of a meeting, through Zoom. So we'll send out to committee members an invitation, and we'll meet that way. Or we will, you know, just table things that aren't essential to get done. So, you know, so we may go off schedule from the Mondays if there's a need for a committee to meet. I may see if you're available on a Wednesday afternoon or so Thursday evening, if that's the case, and we'll do it in this way, okay? But right now, the next schedule of committee meetings, I believe, we're not until May, the first week in May. So we have a little time before but we may need something before that, okay?
Any other comments, questions? Okay, hearing none, then we're going to move to the portion of the meeting that is open to the public for agenda-related items. So what we'll ask is if you are a member of the public and you would like to make a statement, if it is possible to turn on your video, that would be great. If not, what we'll ask you to do is to start by stating your name and your home address, and then we will hear your comments. So at 7:49, we are opening the meeting to the public for agenda-related items.
Okay, I have unmuted everybody, so if anybody has a question, they may speak up. I will mention that there is one particular visitor in the audience. Connor Lanzettel is a Boy Scout working on his Citizenship in the Community Merit Badge, and he is participating. So,
Hey, Connor.
welcome, Connor.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
So are there any comments from the public?
Kelly, did you get any emails?
No, just that one.
Okay,
Okay, so hearing none at 7:50 PM, we're going to close the meeting to the public at this time, or finish that portion of the open session and move on to new business with action to be taken. We're going to begin with personnel, and I'd ask Mrs. Med if you can take us through that.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight, we only have one motion. On the recommendation of the superintendent, we are being asked to approve motion number 1, Erwin Tippett, to approve him as a custodian for the Rutherford High School from April 20th to June 30th. And this is replacement position. So, Mr. President, please call a vote.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or comments? All right, so Mrs. Med, you're putting a motion forward?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Conti, any last questions or comments? Okay, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Librera,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Owati.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, next we have curriculum and instruction. Mrs. Jones, if you could take us through it.
Yes, certainly. There are 4 resolutions for board member consideration. Resolution 1, Comprehensive Equity Plan. Resolution 2 deals with field trips, and there are 119. There is one, Resolution 3 is harassment, intimidation, and bullying decision. There is one resolution where we would affirm the superintendent's decision. And Resolution 4 is the position on Assembly Bill 3902, which opposes a delay in transmission of quarterly property tax revenue to school districts. I was asked to read this in its entirety. Whereas Assembly Bill 3902, currently pending in the state legislature, would authorize the Department of Community Affairs to permit municipalities to delay the quarterly transmission of property tax revenues to school districts during the gubernatorial declared emergencies. And whereas New Jersey public schools are highly dependent on property tax revenues to support education programs, and whereas an average local property tax constitute close to 60% of public school revenue, with the percentage even greater in a significant number of districts. And whereas a delay in payments from municipalities would result in a financial crisis for school districts, seriously disrupting the educational process and bringing it to a halt. And whereas although public school buildings are closed during the current health emergency, the education of our students taking place through remote learning and home instruction, and whereas continued timely transmission of school property taxes are critical for the education process to continue without interruption. And whereas, even though municipalities are designated as authorities to collect property taxes, these taxes are levied for a specific purpose, such as municipal, school, county, fire district, and these obligations must continue to be met. And whereas, as currently written, A 3902, which is intended to ease a financial burden on municipalities, would place a severe strain on school districts and the students and families that they serve. And whereas the Rutherford Public School Board of Education recognizes the impact of the current public health emergency on the state and local government, as well as local school districts, but believes this legislation would worsen the situation for our communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Rutherford Public School Board of Education urges the state senate and the governor to oppose A 3902, and be it further resolved that this resolution be delivered to Governor Phil Murphy, State Senate President Stephen M. Sweeney, Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin, and the 36 legislative districts representatives in the State Senate and General Assembly, and be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be sent to New Jersey School Boards Association.
Thank you, Mrs. Jones. If I could ask Mr. Hurley or Mr. Kelly, do you want to speak a little bit to this or have any comments about it?
Well, I'll let Mr. Kelly, if he wants to add anything. Obviously, the figure that we rely on is greater than that 60% that the resolution says. I think every educational group in the state, from the Association of Superintendents and Business Administrators, principals, supervisors, teachers, the PTA, the New Jersey school boards, are all working to have either this bill not approved or amended. It would be a very difficult burden for us in any school district to continue to provide services, to continue to keep their staff in place to provide those services with funding delayed for a quarter of the year. Joe, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, actually, the motion does say what was it, 60%? We're actually at about 90% of our budget comes from the municipal taxes. So this would be devastating to us. I believe they were talking about potentially delaying payments on a quarterly basis, which for us would be about $10.6 million, and that is not something we can sustain. That's not something we can manage without drastic cuts in programs and staffing. So this is important.
Any comments and questions by board members?
Has there been any conversations or talk with the mayor and council, what they would intend to do?
No, not official talk, a very brief conversation. I am planning on, as this is going through the process of the various lobbying that's going on, I've been getting some updates, and I plan to have a conversation with him. The short conversation we had was a good one, but we'll see where this all plays. Again, the bill does not require the municipalities, if it should pass in its current form, doesn't require that they do it. It gives them the option to do it.
The only comment I would have is that education has been viewed as an essential service. And I would hope that in our community, just like other essential services, that this, of anything, would be further moved, just like those other essential functions in our community.
Yeah, no disagreement. So we'll see how it all plays out down in Trenton, and then depending on how it plays out in Trenton, we'll see how it's going to play out here in Borough Hall.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve those four motions?
I put forth the four resolutions.
Okay.
Second.
Jones, Ms. Librera seconds. Any last comment or question? All right, hearing none. Mr. Kelly, if you could take roll.
Sure, Mrs. Ahmed,
yes,
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Librera,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Alati.
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have finance. Dr. Racine.
Okay, Finance, we have two motions tonight. Number one is the approval of bills. Number two is to accept the donation of sewing machines and fabric and quilt from the estate of Joan Bisciora.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, do we have a motion? Dr. Racine, you want to make a motion for this?
Oh, sorry. I move items 1 and 2.
All right.
Second.
Who's
Move
that?
that, Dennis.
Dennis? Okay. Mr. Mazzone, seconded. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. Mr. Kelly, if you could take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
yes,
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Librera.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Alati.
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Librera, policy, any update?
No update, no meeting and no update.
Okay, thank you very much. Buildings and grounds, Mr. Healy.
Yes, we did not have, we did not have a Buildings and Ground Committee meeting since our last board meeting. And tonight there are two resolutions for review and approval. Number one is regarding the addition and interior alterations to the kindergarten center, and it involves a bid award as listed. The board hereby awards the contract for the project to Brahma Construction in a total contract sum of $1,939,412. The second resolution is regarding the science lab alterations at Rutherford High School. And in this resolution, the board would award the contract as recommended for the project to Practical LLC in a contract sum of $1,260,000. And as listed in the corrected motions sent by Mr. Kelly on Friday. So we are putting these, Mr. President, we're putting these two forth tonight for approval.
Okay, do we have any questions, comments?
Believe it or not, I do have a question on the high school project. And it's simply, it doesn't probably, might not be important at this moment, but are there any concerns about the high school roof before this construction starts?
There is no issue with the high school roof.
Okay, just asking that question.
They were all redone within the last 3 or 5 years.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Healy, are you moving these?
Yes, we're moving these two resolutions this evening for approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Any last questions or comments? All right, Mr. Kelly, if you could take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
yes,
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes,
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Librera,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone. Mr. Mazzone?
You're on mute.
Yes. Rookie move, sorry.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Oladi?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Usually when we talk about rookie moves, it's me making the rookie moves.
We just don't say it out loud.
So we're going to move now into old business. Is there any old business to be talked about? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to legislative update. Mr. Conti, do you have anything for us?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, anything, Mr. Hurley, anything you want to add to legislative or?
No, I mean, all the legislation been coming up with executive orders related to situation we're in. And we just spoke about the one piece of legislation. We are waiting word from the state. I got a little appetizer of it tonight, but not official word about how we're going to deal with teacher and staff evaluations for this year, since we've lost a block of time. And again, not to suggest that that indicates that we're not going to be back. As you know, statutorily, people have to be told by May 15th whether they are going to be offered a contract for the following year or not. So the evaluation window, even if the school year goes to June 23rd in our district, the evaluation period ends May 15th in terms of contractual obligations. So there will be some changes in how staff evaluations are going to be tabulated this year with the loss of time we have. And we're awaiting word from that, from Trent.
Thank you. Okay, at 8:05 p.m., we're going to open up the meeting to the public for any agenda items related or not related to the
I've
agenda.
unmuted everybody.
Okay, if anyone has any items to discuss from the public, agenda or non-agenda related, please speak up now. Hearing none, at 8:05 p.m., we're going to close this portion of the meeting. And I believe at this time, we already had our executive session, so there's no need. Therefore, it looks like we're ready for adjournment. Okay, so at 8:05 p.m. meeting, we are going to adjourn this regular meeting of the Rutherford Board of Education. I want to thank everyone for being here this evening and making our first virtual Board of Ed meeting a success.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
getting
you.
it organized.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Stay well.